With that, good evening, everybody. I'll call our meeting to order in the absence of Ernie here. I will be leading our meeting today. The first item on our agenda is to approve our agenda. As you see in front of you, I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda for tonight.
Motion to approve the agenda.
So I hear Renee motioning and Steve, thank you. Steve seconding. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? I'll be abstaining from that vote. I was not clear. Chris, I think she might be abstaining as well.
As for that.
So your next.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm thinking of minutes. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not.
next thing on your agenda
Aye.
is public comment.
Thank you. So with that, our agenda is approved. Next is public comment. Do we have any public? I see a hand raised. Come on. Yeah. You got about 3 minutes, but looking forward to hearing more.
Hi everyone. I'm Elizabeth Johnson. I used to work for the library. I volunteer with the Friends. Love the library. And I really appreciate everything you guys do to keep it done smoothly, keep it running smoothly, and to carefully steward the library's resources. I'm here today though, because I was volunteering yesterday and watching the roof leak. And I imagine that is as distressing to everybody here as it is to me. But when I tried to figure out kind of what's going on with it, what are we doing, I couldn't get adequate information. I didn't see it being discussed at any of the board meetings. I couldn't find anything online and anything on Facebook. The staff didn't really seem to know. So just my request is that we could keep bringing it up at board meetings every month while it's still going on, just to make sure the public is aware that, you know, we care about the $745,000 we spent on the roof. And we are doing whatever we need to do so that our expensive electronics, for Hugo, are not getting rained on, our books are not getting rained on, our light fixtures are having rain coming through them, we're not causing a fire hazard. So just, if that's a update on the website, if that's keeping the staff informed so that they know when somebody asks, I would really appreciate that. And that said, again, thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you for your comments. As you know, we cannot respond to public comment. But if later on we have an update about the roof conditions, I would certainly be interested in hearing that. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we can now move on to approval of the minutes from our regular and special meetings that we had in February. So I will entertain a motion for the approval of both of those minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the regular meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Seeing any discussion or correction? Seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? I'm abstaining from that minute.
Hello, Jim.
With that, it brings us to, we have a couple of presentations today. First up, we have our representatives. Kathy, I believe you're going to introduce.
Yes, Todd Fenton and Andy Fountain are from Plantaram Rail Point, and will speak about their owners representation and development advisory, what that entails and how it could be useful as we go forward with our library renovation.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. I don't know if this works, but thank you very much for making time on your agenda this evening. Just got a nice tutorial here for our slides. Appreciate the introduction again and the opportunity. My name is Andy Fountain. I'm with Plant Moran Real Point, and we are the full service capital development and construction consulting firm arm of Plant Moran. I know you're very familiar as with Brian and Kelly here who assist you with your the finance needs. And we're here this evening to talk to you about our services as it relates to owners representation services. Just by way of background, I've been with the firm for let's say it's 10 years. Last Friday, I run the government practice within Plant Moran Real Point. I have a background in construction management prior to my time with Real Point. Also worked in the public sector, worked for a local school district for a period of time as their owner's rep, working on large scale capital development programs. As I stated, I've been with the firm for about 10 years, working on all sorts of various capital initiatives. I also have Todd Fenton here with me this evening. I'm going to get started, and I'm going to hand it to Todd to talk through a couple items here, and I'll let himself introduce himself when we get to that point. So just a high level overview of Plant Moran Real Point and kind of how we integrate and interact with the mothership, if you will, with Plant Moran. I know most folks when we hear Plant Moran, tax and audit. But it's more than that. We do all sorts of professional service consulting, whether that's with IT, we do tax, obviously we do a lot of work in operations and consulting with folks to learn how they can be more efficient and service their clients. We are as I mentioned, we're the real estate arm of the firm. We're full service. We provide, we can facilitate consulting needs, transaction needs, and also program management or owner's rep when you get to the point where you're ready to take what you've learned through a consulting exercise and move forward to an implementation phase. So as I mentioned, Real Points, we're comprehensive end-to-end real estate full service. We've lots of different folks that work on our team. As I mentioned, I have a background in construction management. Todd here actually comes from 20 years in the public sector, working in economic development, and served as a interim city manager for another neighboring city here in Oakland County. We have architects, we have engineers, we have lawyers, we have anything and everything that you would need from a professional experience perspective to advise you and guide you through capital programs that you all are considering at this point. So we talk about who we work with and what sort of industries. I mentioned that, I spearhead the government and infrastructure practice, but we work in all sorts of markets. Pretty much anybody that has a real estate need, we find ourselves in the middle of a conversation, whether that's senior living, whether that's acute care. We have a corporate practice. We work with all sorts of different groups to solve for their real estate needs. As I mentioned, we've got a deep bench. You can see all the different types of professionals that we have. We have actually, this needs to be updated. We went to a meeting today with our project management team. There's 146 members now, I believe.
They actually quizzed us and
Yeah.
we got it wrong
Yeah.
because we didn't know that there were like 4 new hires coming on board within the next month.
Yeah, we're sure how they were counting that, but approximately we're trending towards 150 staff members at this time. And as I mentioned, lots of disciplines, lots of experience that we lend to our clients to solve for their needs. So these are some of the things that when we talk with our clients, we talk about, what are the risks associated with my project, and is this even financially feasible? Should I lease a building? Should I buy a building? Should I renovate what I have? These are all the kinds of things that come inbound to us, and we work with you shoulder to shoulder to vet through your questions and develop solutions that solve not only for the need, but also fit inside the box with respect to your, where you're at financially and what access you have to capital to facilitate the investment. So as I mentioned, we really have three main tranches of services. It starts really with consulting, and that can mean lots of different things. It's really kind of it's wide open. That can mean identifying what your needs look like, understanding how much space you need. Some clients come to us and say, we're operating here, but maybe this isn't the right location. Maybe we should do a demographics analysis and understand where there might be other opportunities. But then also, what's the value of the property that we have? So we work in all sorts of capacities to develop solutions and vet through our clients' needs. And then out of that discussion, sometimes a transaction is necessary, whether that's an acquisition, a disposition, perhaps a leasing arrangement. And then once they get through that phase, we move into an implementation or an owner's rep phase, which is where we would sit and act as an extension of you and to engage the construction community, the architect community, making sure that we get the right team involved in your program to make sure that we can achieve your goal and implement according to your scope, your timeline and your budget. I'm going to let Todd actually talk through a couple of these slides, and then I can wrap it up at the end. Todd, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. The English major in me, I love libraries. It's like a second home for me. I love the smell of them. I love being able to hold them and flip through the pages. Like, this is great. I'm a lot of the times, because my background is public sector, I'm spending a lot of time in dilapidated city halls and police stations and DPW yards trying to figure out, a path forward on how particular city can achieve its goal. So I'm really happy to be in this space today. By way of background, I started in economic development. I'm an attorney by background, did a lot of incentive negotiation, joined the city of Royal Oak 10 years ago, and moved from their economic development director to their acting city manager. Spent 3 years in the manager's office there. That is actually where I came in contact with Plant Moran Real Point at the time. We had a developer approach the city on a pretty large, massive public-private partnership project that was about $100 million. And so I always advise municipal clients that I work with, having been on that side of the table, I know what you're good at, and you're good at running a library, and you're good at doing fundraising, and you're good at balancing those budgets year to year. This is a massive capital improvement plan that you're looking at embarking upon. We have a team of 150 plus people that do this daily, and we're really here. An owner's representative is almost like an agent. I'm not saying that as a legal term, I'm saying it more as a representative of your interests. And so our goal is to work hand in hand, not only to understand what you're trying to accomplish with the program, but to build a program that mitigates risk to the extent possible for the owner. We work with your architects. We work to help procure who would actually build these projects. We work through a schedule of what we think would be the most efficient and effective way of spending money on the program, and ideally trying to condense it, both for operational savings, construction savings, and frankly, trying to lessen the impact upon the community that a construction project can have for an entity. So I'm overseeing everything from Novi's $100 million public safety program right now, to smaller engagements where we're really just in an advisory consulting capacity, trying to provide different paths for what the entity, we're actually looking at another library, what is the best path forward for that individual entity. So we don't have a one size fits all approach. We literally, every project that we take, we are tailoring our scope of services to the individual client, but there are things that remain the same, and we understand that from start to completion, and in terms of trying to mitigate risks on the project, a firm like us is here to mitigate where the influence and the cost of construction can get out of hand. And that's a daily monitoring thing that we do in the firm. you may only see Andy and I here today, but routinely on our projects, we've got everything from a project cost accountant to another architect looking at what your architect may be doing. People checking what the construction manager, general contractor are doing. All of these again we are effectively acting as an extension of this board itself, should we, have the opportunity to work with you. Owner's representation in terms of our process and our approach. These are generally the buckets that we start with, and the first one here, and I think that's the most important probably for you is getting a handle on what the program is. Understanding what the scope and budget are. We can help with cash flow modeling and some other things in terms of building what that program is. And I say the key indicator for any successful project is at the planning phase where you're validating the program and then you're bringing the stakeholders that you need to pull this program all together within a relatively short amount of time. Having our expertise, and Andy had said, we're scalable. We work in many different industries, public sector, commercial. A lot of the commercial projects that we do is where we're pulling in best practices to then implement for the public sector. So when we're working with different firms that would be coming in playing different roles on the project, we do take an affirmative role in contract negotiations and trying to use language in our contracts that speak to your advantage, not the actual vendor's advantage, and we can achieve savings that way. Once we actually get through the team assembly and we finalize what the design and what the actual budget, with construction estimating where we're at there. The construction phase is really just about phasing. You know what you're building, you know what you're getting, you know what the timing is. It's not to say that that's on autopilot, but the majority of the work that an owner's representative is doing is here at that very, very early stage to make sure that you've got the right program, right size for what you're trying to accomplish. So this is again another version of somewhat of what we're trying to do here. We will review due diligence that you've already done to date in terms of what your utilization is, what your operational needs are, what your staffing needs are, where your staffing projections are going, making sure that when you're making an investment in new facilities or renovating parts of facilities, this is not for many entities, this happens once in a lifetime. The goal is to try to check as many boxes off of what you need as an organization so that you don't have to revisit these things in 10, 15, 20 years. And again, that's a lot of the experience that we've worked with other municipal clients over 30 years now with Real Point. Generally, these are the questions that we're asking at the very outset, and I'm sure you've asked many of these questions yourselves, but we will sit there and again review the work that you've done today and make sure that we understand how your facility decisions are impacting your library operations, how we can optimize your facilities to lower operating costs. When you're looking at, what the long-term functionality of a facility is. Can you be serving the needs of residents better today with future population growth? How can a facility address that? And there's a lot of different ways, from just how circulation is to the use of technology. Physical, what assets do you have and how can you use them? Well, we know those, and that's where we really need to figure out your space needs now and in the future. And then, really, how do we fund development creatively and efficiently beyond, this phase? We know that you've got a budget and we know that is here to present where you're at with that, but we also have expertise in trying to figure out creative ways of using capital, or even increasingly public-private partnership opportunities where you may be able to have the private sector alleviate some of the financial push on your organization by integrating different programs. And we see that a lot in recreation. There are some libraries that are starting to look at opportunities to partner with the private sector. Would that work for you? I don't know, but it's something that we would explore as a way of mitigating costs and providing better services for the people that frequent the library. I don't know that this is shining any more of a light there, but This was a slide when I joined the firm that I really wanted to emphasize, having worn the hat of somebody managing a city day to day. And then you're foisting $100 million program on them. And I knew, and this was when I was pitching, my boss at the time, of why I needed to bring Plant Moran Real Point on board is. This is the to-do list without an owner's rep. And I actually showed what my to-do list was. Just as an economic developer and as a deputy city manager, and it was larger than this list, and now you're giving me this list to do. That is the really the impact that we bring to an organization like yours. That your daily to-do list really gets to focus on what you do best and what you've done, really, really wonderfully here in these minutes. Focus on the library. We're here to work with you to provide all of the updates that you need. We generally, when we start with a client, we establish a governance framework so that we know, the daily cadence of when we should be checking in, when we should be providing reports, when we should be providing public facing dashboards on the progress of projects such as these. But really, we are like that right hand that is taking all of these tasks and working with those daily to accomplish your needs. So I think this is a tool by which, and now we're getting into the weeds of how we do our work. But essentially, we do have a dashboard that is available to all of your clients, and it's in real time. It's being updated as expenditures are being made and projections are being revised. So, we are fully transparent. There isn't any piece of information that you wouldn't have working with us. And at the end of the day, you still retain control of all of your ownership decisions. We are not making decisions for you. We are advising you on what we see as the best path forward. And in some cases, there may be multiple paths forward, and we'll give you the pros and cons of why you should do option A versus option B. So I think we're getting ready to close this. I'll let you.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Todd. So, we talk about, our involvement, our process, how we assist our clients, and really at the end of the day, it's like, well, where's the, what's the value? What's the ROI by having a group like ours or just an orange rep in general? Typically what we like to say is that we are at the end of the day, by running our process, we at least get to a point where we're cost neutral to our clients. We always aim to create a rate of return by having our services as part of your program. What we mean by that is through the procurement process, through the planning, through the procurement, and also mitigating costs throughout the process of construction. All of that together, we aim to put those savings back in your pocket to further advance your program. The opportunity really resides in that, as Todd mentioned, is in that planning phase. When we talk about favorable contract terms, there's one word inside of the A133 document for your construction manager that can be worth millions of dollars. And it all depends on how you articulate how that term gets calculated into the fee of the construction manager. So that's just one example of how because of our experience and our process, we know where to put that term to benefit you, to make sure that you don't spend unnecessary dollars in procuring professional services. And that, again, that's just one nuance. But again, it goes back to that, because we have that knowledge and expertise, we can lend that to you and then put that savings back into your program to further enhance and address your needs. We have a couple examples of other clients that we've worked with. We worked with Novi. We did a program with them. That's been at least 10 years at the time. So that 16 million that was there in today's dollars might be more like 30. But at any rate, we've got lots of experience working with different library groups. If you click forward, we've done Grosse Pointe Library. That's another program that we were involved as an owner's rep. And then I think we have Todd's story about Royal Oak, but I also like to mention we've also worked with Westland Library. We've worked with Royal Oak Library. And all in different, phases of their program, serving as owners rep for Westland. We did some consulting with Royal Oak, helped them kind of get teed up for a renovation program. So I'm very familiar with how you all operate. And I feel like, we'd be a good fit to assist you with the program that you have ahead of you.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna get too involved in the Royal Oak case study, but I will say that was downtown Royal Oak in 2014, and this is downtown Royal Oak now. And I don't believe without the services that Plant Moran was providing, we would be there. We would probably still be more like this, except chunks would be developed and it would be kind of half built
This is
because
their library, no, right? This didn't move.
that is.
Yeah.
Their library is right there, and if you see the addition of green, that was one of the elements that I advocated for strongly, because I love libraries that. Essentially what was going on here is you have these surface parking lots here. This is where Royal Oak City Hall is, this is where the police station runs, the library is right there. And at the time in 2014, the city commission had come up with a economic development plan of bringing 180,000 square feet of new Class A office space into the city by 2020. No one knew, like 2020 would be an ominous number for office space especially. And I was brought in board to help facilitate that. And a developer had come in and said, actually, I want to develop these two surface lots right here. This is what, if you're familiar with downtown Royal Oak, that is now the Henry Ford Outpatient Center. And adjacent to it is a 560 spot parking structure that we needed to build to take not only to replace the parking that was there. This is Main Street, so taking off 300 spots off of Main Street. I got a lot of really bad voicemails from businesses in the area and residents. Changed my number a few times. And again, the whole idea was to actually bring more economic development in the city. So this is a really important feature to function as to feed the parking issues from that building as well. But the idea became if the Royal Oak City Hall, which was here, and the police station was here, they have to move. Why don't we take the opportunity to provide an amenity for the public? And it was the one thing that everybody in the city really liked. They were involved in the design through charrettes and different stakeholder engagement meetings that we would have. And it made sense because you had the library here, and the library really wasn't part of this plan, but we decided to allocate $2 million to really fresh up the entrance to the library, which was right there, to add some landscaping, to add some special features into that area. And without starting down the path that we were necessarily making a municipal civic center, it was actually through a lot of the work with Plant Moran and other clients that they had, have you considered doing this? And you put City Hall here and you put the police station right here over by where the court is. You've got a lot of synergies here, and you actually have something that may actually spur development in a way we had not thought of in terms of bringing more visitors into the city with this piece of property as a central gathering place. It can also host events and such. And so it's probably now one of the most visited parts of the city. They got skating, they got Winter Blast, they do the Taco Fest over there. Again, that was not something that a lot of municipal leaders were thinking at the time, because we were just trying to wrap our heads around how are we going to manage the day-to-day of $100 million program. And so it was especially after we finally finished this in 2022 that I approached the firm and said, I want to do this full time. I want to advise other cities on where the opportunities are and where you may be missing different things in this calculus, because municipal finance is still broken in this state. You're still continuing to do more with less, and for a very agreeable fee, we have a team of people that can come in and bring the expertise of 150 people and 100 years plus of combined development experience to accomplish what you're trying to do, or your ambitions. And so I'll close with that thought. I know that we've got opportunity to take questions and answer questions if you have any. Or we can turn it over to our other partners at Plant Moran.
Well, I'll ask them one question. About how much your services, how much do they charge? And it is over a 5-year period that you anticipate working with someone?
It's very much client specific, so, wrapping our heads around, we would probably look at. An introductory, like, pre-design, pre-planning phase of what are you trying to do? This is where we think that we can take this program. But that's all planning, right? And that would probably be a flat fee. We would look at, in terms of how you implement that, as quote unquote owner's representation, in which we would oversee the construction. That would be a different phase. I don't know if you want to get into.
No, I mean,
dollars and cents.
to Todd's point, we typically, and knowing what's been shared with us, there's a piece of this that, there's opportunity here to maybe consolidate. And we saw that the projection right now is going out into the late 2030s. With your current plan, there may be an opportunity, we feel pretty strongly that you could, with your support, that we could consolidate that. That will ultimately mitigate costs. Just in construction escalation alone, we're seeing
fighting. Every day.
It's 5% every year over year compounding.
You don't know
And
if there's
so-
tariffs there,
Right, yeah.
like all that, like you do not want to stretch construction programs past. A date where it's hard enough to predict next year, much less 5, 6, 7 years from now.
Are we speaking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for retained gauge services?
So I think that to start, you're talking about like a smaller amount. We're talking to do the just get acclimated and vet through what you have. We're talking about maybe like $25,000-$30,000. And that really it gives us an opportunity for you to get to know us and our process and us to get to know you and arrive at some consensus on how this program could move forward. When we do that, we'll provide you with, a budget, and within the budget would be the cost for our services to then move forward to that implementation owner's rep phase. That fee is typically derived off the budget that you develop for the program. And it's usually a function of a percentage that we would derive off of the budget, but we would do that as a fixed amount. And that typically for programs like this is anywhere from 2 to 3%. And it ultimately the driver and what that fee looks like is the services that you'd like to hire us to perform. So Todd and I were up north last week with a county that's looking at a jail program, $27 million.
And that's why we like being in the library.
Yep, library is good. Like jails are okay, but libraries are more fun. The same question was, well, how much is this going to cost? I'm like, well, do you want the Cadillac where we just come in and we stand in your place and advise you and you make the decisions? Or do you need the Chevy Malibu, or would you like to go to the Pinto? And we have different solutions that we can offer at different price points, and there's different ways that we can.
Pintos don't explode.
No, they do not. But it really, I don't mean to not give you a non-answer. It really is a function of the services that you'd like us to perform.
Well, I may hop in here a second. What I'd like is for the board to read this presentation again. If you have any questions or comments, email me before 15th of March, because we're gonna have another finance committee meeting. And that's with all your comments, that's when we'll discuss with Carrie Shea what exactly we would want them to do. And then she would write a proposal as to what would be covered and how much it would cost. So that's why you need to kind of like let me know what you think. Yes.
But I have 2 questions, thank you, not my turn.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First off, you guys would not serve as our construction manager, though, right? That's
No, sir.
different.
We
Okay,
would
so no matter what, we have to have a construction manager, and you would represent us before them.
We would also advise on what the proper, or I would say most advantageous delivery method for the construction manager is that.
Sure, right. Okay, and then I've had the opportunity to hear you before, so I'm jumping ahead of some of our board members that haven't heard you yet. But so I understand the concept. You could help us with the consolidation of our future plans. Is it specifically within your area of expertise to give us advice on how to finance that? Like, in other words, if, would you help us decide whether it's a good idea to go for a bond or something like that? Is that in your expertise?
As far as, we could certainly, from the budget, that will obviously inform, what any sort of debt issuance would look like. We would then work with, and I believe at the last meeting you had, PFM that was at the meeting. We have a great working relationship with them specifically. We work with all of them, and we work with Baker Tilly, we work with, Benzinski, we work with PFM, we work with anybody that's in that market. So you'd still have to have PFM. I believe that you had, it wasn't Miller Canfield, it was another gentleman from another bond council. We would work with both of those entities
Yeah.
to then advise on, okay, should you do a single issuance, should you do multiple issuances? And that obviously goes as a function of the program, the cash flow, which is all part of what we would help you model and better understand. So then you could work with PFM and in a bond council to facilitate what a bond issuance looks like. Ultimately, then understanding if a millage or some sort of debt service component is required, what that would look like.
Okay, thanks.
One of the values that might be, that this might bring for me is I have never felt that, I got good responses to questions about stormwater management in the face of climate change from anyone we've talked to.
Okay.
And, it's one of my big concerns. It was a concern in Royal Oak.
It still is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I worked in Royal Oak for a long time and Royal Oak does not have good stormwater management. It's gotten a little bit better, but like especially this building, which has elements that are below grade. It's just something where I don't feel like, we have even maybe the expertise to ask the right questions. So is that an area that you have team competencies in?
We certainly work with, architects on these projects to really implement, what a stormwater mitigation plan would look like. It's very different from a renovation versus construction, and so we have to understand what we're dealing with there. New construction generally is mandating, new approaches to stormwater.
Yes.
What those are, it's project specific, in terms of what's the geography of the site and what do we have to tackle there. There's two things. There's both, the 100-year storms where you've got water that is kind of building, and that's one thing. And then you've got the actual infrastructure, and you've got 100-year-old infrastructure that in these storms. That's a completely
The
another
100-year-old
issue.
storm that comes every 3 years.
Royal Oak deals with a lot that really is $1 billion problem that nobody has really figured out a solution yet, other than when you've got new builds coming, mitigate stormwater to the extent that you can.
And I think
permanent pavement.
our cities don't have good future plans for managing stormwater, neither city that I know. That's good.
It's something that, from, wearing my public sector hat, all of these communities are dealing with infrastructure that is 100 years old. It's very different and not having the funds to fix that. And these are $1 billion problems. I mean, I know Birmingham right now is getting ready to rip up a lot of their infrastructure and the principal shopping district. People are not very happy about that at all, but at some point you need to address it in a way that you can. And so, yes, we would look at, obviously with a new build, that's carte blanche, we need to address it.
Right.
But
that was my
understanding the
concern, because we are-
facility issues, flooding, or I heard the roof flooding, understanding, where you're at and what are the items that need to be taken care of 1 year, 2 years, 5 years from now. I mean, that's part of what we do too. It's just look at your buildings and what are their actual conditions.
It just maybe dovetail a little bit, that through the planning phase, we'll better understand what the requirements are, what the needs look like. And that works itself into a budgeting exercise. And then once we hire an architect, they'll typically would have, sometimes we hire a civil separate than an architect. We would talk to you about the advantages, disadvantages of that. But the civil groups would then be able to come in and actually take that deep dive and be able to advise on, okay, here are the specific requirements, whether that's coming from Oakland County or others that we need to solve for as part of this program. And a lot of times there's, depending on the type of work will trigger different requirements. And so that's
It's
really,
just that I worked in this field for a long time and I.
what's your background? Just like curiosity.
So I was a program manager for green stormwater infrastructure. Specifically green stormwater infrastructure,
Okay.
not gray,
Mhm.
but it's just a real concern I have.
Sure.
Because we're doing renovations, it's like, I don't know that there's anybody with really their eye on this,
Mhm.
other than an architect, and, so I just wanted to ask if that's competency that you have on your team. That's all I was really trying.
Sure. No, I'm sorry. Sorry.
And
to
then I
go-
have a really snide. Please tell me you were not responsible for the parking meters in Royal Oak.
I was
Oh,
not.
thanks.
I will say that I fought against them, that at the time in Royal Oak, parking was looked at as enforcement, so it was the police department that oversaw it. And you might be shocked to think that 100% compliance is a goal for public safety and law enforcement versus somebody's trying to bring people to the city. Maybe 100% compliance isn't exactly what we're looking
Yeah.
at. We want people to come.
I don't
back,
mind
so.
paying to park. I mind backing in on an
You-
angle
you're-
on Main Street.
They have replaced the system.
I know.
And I don't
The
believe
last time
there's,
I was here, they were all.
I don't believe there's reverse angle parking either. But yeah, it was
That was enough. I just wanted.
it was enough for me to work for the city of Royal Oak as well.
I just, one question I have about your fee structure, so I understand what you're saying is that it's a percentage of the overall budget. Okay, so is that fixed or are there certain cost increases that may occur over time?
So no, we would structure it as a fixed amount. The only thing that would impact that fee is if you were to add scope. If there was if we had COVID part 2, it's got us right. No, I'm not saying we're doing that. It's those types of but if once we agree on what the program budget is, our fee is fixed. And it'll be based on, again, service, the budget, your timeline, all that factors into what's the appropriate percentage as a fixed fee.
Thank you.
Yes.
When we interviewed construction managers and some other things, we had some nice references that we talked to about using their services. And I see that you have Novi, you have Macomb,
Mhm.
and I wonder if you have some specific individuals that we might talk to say, did this fit with your program, and did they follow up, and the individuals on there a daily basis, or just to give an idea of how comfortable they were hiring you, and are they continue to work with you? So this might be a 2-year project, 3-year project. Do you feel comfortable, give us some specific people to talk to?
Absolutely. No, we'll give you a list of references to call. That's no problem.
I appreciate that.
Of course. They're not, I thought they were in there, but maybe they're not. I have them up. We'll get them over to Sasha. No problem.
Any other questions? Just one quick question. The library's been working with Plant Moran for many years, and I'm just curious why you didn't offer this opportunity or suggestion right when we started our planning for this new project.
Well, the audit side of the firm, Plant Moran, we are a 50% owned affiliate of Plant Moran, so we uniquely work with real estate. We were contacted by PM Gap when they saw that there was probably, I wouldn't say a necessity, but certainly it was a conversation worth having in terms of the services that we could provide for this program, because some of their, at least what they've seen with other municipal clients and whatnot, some of the timelines that they saw, some of the investments being made, they thought, I think it would be a good conversation with people on the real estate team who do this every single day to maybe address how we might approach it a little bit differently. So I think they rang that bell when they were most comfortable ringing that bell, and we are in here early. I mean, we have gotten calls from other people that we've already hired an architect and we started building half this stuff and I don't think we're gonna be able to finish this project. Like, can you come in and right size this? And that's a very different exercise. We are most impactful generally as Real Point when we're involved at the planning stages. And that's where I see this project is right now, so.
Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. We
Thank you.
really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming and presenting, and we'll get back with
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And reminder to get questions to Kathy by the 15th.
Yes, please.
Next, we have, I believe, Kelly and Brian from Plant Ryan.
Yes. Kelly. Oh, similar, yep. Is that okay? And Brian Camiller from Plant Moran will present the 2025-2026 budget amendments and the 2026-2027 proposed budget. At the May board meeting, the public will be invited to view these budgets, and the board will vote to accept the budgets if we have more amended budgets, which we usually do, and the proposed budget in June, at the June.
Thank you. So Carrie Shea, my partner, sends her regards. Normally it would be that she would be here. She's out of town, and so I'm sorry you get stuck with me. But 6 years ago today, I was at your board meeting, and that's when the decision was made to hire PM Gap, give up the Plant Moran audit, and we would become your internal accounting people. Why do I remember that it's exactly 6 years ago today? Because you were the last client that I saw before COVID shut everything down. So it feels like it was yesterday. It doesn't feel like 6 years. I think the time space continuum has been broken, but we very much appreciate the long relationship that you had in Plant Moran. So I'm going to go through just some highlights of the budget amendment. If you have detailed questions, I will answer them to the best of my ability, but I might also punt to Kelly since she's the one that does 99.9% of the work on your account. And Carrie and I just come in to talk and chat. So the amendment, as it were, for the adjustments to revenue, little under $57,000, primarily as a result of interest continuing to be strong. Interest rates have not quite fallen as quickly as we may have thought when the original budget was established. And then also the fact that the capital projects have not happened as quickly as might have been thought at the time. And so there's more money to earn interest on. And conversely, the expenditures, we're reducing those a net $2.8 million. 2.9 of that is related to the phase one, with some minor increases to what's listed here, utilities and some landscaping. No big ticket items there. It's all a function of reducing the expenditures for the capital. Assuming you were to approve this amendment, your revenue for 2026 should come in just a shade under $9 million, which is $600,000 more than it was in 25. That is almost all property tax related. Not that you had an increase in the millage, just the increase in the taxable value and what comes naturally. On the expenditure side, with taking out that 2.8 million, your expenditures will be down to around 8.6, 8.7 million, which is still a fairly big jump from 2025. That is a combination of some capital work that's already been done, some of the contraction of services that have led to the project starting to get moving, and some technology improvements that we've done internally, as well as people costs for wages, fringes, healthcare, pension benefits. That's it for the amendment. Before I go to the proposed 27, is there any questions that Kelly can answer for you? Right. Is motion expected to,
I was gonna do that after, but I can do that. I move the board approve the 2025 to 2026 budget amendments.
So
Support.
All in favor?
We needed to.
Have the discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion? Okay. All in favor?
I,
Aye. All opposed? Yay.
Can I give a copy of the PowerPoint?
I do not.
Yep, take it.
I do, yes.
No.
Oh.
Wait,
I
sorry, one
I just
second.
want to make sure you had it.
okay,
Just for minute purposes, Stephen, were you seconding right there?
No.
Well, I know, but Kathy made the motion.
oh, so yeah,
Well, Kathy,
yeah.
I thought she asked for. 'em.
Yeah.
He asked.
He asked for.
Is that how it went? Okay.
Uh-huh.
So that's so. Or so moved.
Well, I said I moved the board approves.
Okay, then she did move.
Okay, that's what okay.
Should have spoke up.
all right, so the proposed budget for 2027. Based off of what we expect 2026 to end up. Plus some changes on the revenue side, taxes are gonna continue to go up. The rest of the revenue sources at pretty well flat. Actually, we are expecting a reduction in interest income as a result of those falling interest rates and assuming phase one does get off the ground and you start spending that money, you're earning less on that. So I think it's about $100,000 reduction in interest income that's expected, offset by the increase in property taxes. So total revenue over 9 million. You'll notice that the expenditures are significantly higher than the revenue. That is $4 million of phase one and associated work that goes along with it. $5 million of people costs. That's several $100,000 more than what we expect for 26. But that's the raises you normally give, the changes to fringes and healthcare and so have you. So operating expenses of 7 million is a little misleading because that's really 4 million of capital and $3 million of operations. So assuming everything happened exactly as we planned, which we know we don't have a crystal ball, it will not be exact, but if everything happened exactly like this, you would end 27 with almost $6.3 million of fund balance. You'd be using up several million for the construction as you plan, and still $6.3 million on what's normally an $8 to $9 million budget is still quite strong. Some of the capital improvements that are included in this would be the renovations to the restrooms, the amphitheater, new study rooms, and resurfacing of the west parking lot. So total revenue, not a big increase expected. You usually blow past whatever budget we put in for revenue. You come out $200,000 ahead, but you'll crack $9 million. And then, of course, on the expenditure side, you can see that the red pie piece jumps quite a lot. That is all the capital charges. Any questions on that?
Just as a matter of best practice relative to our typical revenue, what would you say percentage wise is a healthy fund balance?
That is a loaded question. And my answer always starts with, it depends. So in your case, given how much capital you have, capital projects that you plan to do, and there's still the question of, are we going to bond, or are we going to pay cash, or is it going to be a mix? My answer is you can't have enough. So, but if you take out the capital project aspect and you're just talking about for operations plus stuff is gonna break naturally, then the operations, 2 months of the expenses makes sense. So 16.67% of your budget. And then it's a question of how comfortable are we with our capital? So based on the age of this building and the age of the main branch, knowing what you have to have done and knowing that you do prefer not to issue debt if possible. In that case, so yet 16.67 is just to cover operations. I'd probably round that to 25%, just because I'm very conservative and nervous Nelly about a lot of things. And then several $1,000,000 thereafter, it just depends on how quickly you want to use it for capital or not. You know, maybe I'm just kind of making things up at this point, but I'm saying maybe you want a third branch. Maybe you want to merge with someone else and you want to use that money. You know, how much is the right amount? You know, it's going to be millions, but you certainly don't have too much. I think I've told one client in 27 years they have too much. Do you have not enough? No, I think you're comfortable and you're in a position to do a lot of what you want to do, and you have options ahead of you for how to take on these big capital projects.
Thank you.
So capital, or sorry, the construction project aside, when we usually see these year by year, but if you look at kind of over the last several years, and you look at the trend of how much our expenditures are going up versus the revenue, do you know what that looks like? Are we on track? My hunch is, I guess my secondary question is, are other costs, maybe staffing and fringe and benefits, are those climbing higher than the property tax and all of the revenue?
So if we look back 8 to 10 years, the answer is, oh, yes, costs are going up a lot faster than your revenue, because as you saw, 90% of your revenue is property taxes, and that is, as Todd said earlier, finance is broken here in Michigan, and the property taxes are held to the lesser of inflation of 5%. And from 1994 up until 3 years ago, inflation was 2.35% on average. We had 2 years where it went all the way up to 5. Actually, it was higher, but taxes were limited to a 5% growth. But when you think about the number of people that you have, cost of healthcare at a minimum has been going up 7 to 10% a year. I don't know what your most recent increase was, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was 20, because I have some clients that have had that. So if you go back that many years, 8 or 10 years, you were having surpluses regularly of 3, 4, 500,000 a year. And in the last couple of years, it's been less than that. You're not to a point yet where, how are we going to balance this budget? We've got to cut services or not fill vacant positions or do something like that. You're not there yet. Depending on how much capital you do decide to do and how you decide to pay for it, my answer might change 18 or 36 months from now. But right now, I'm not yet concerned.
Any other questions? Thank you so much for presenting that to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Lots of things to think about and consider. So I want to remind you all again, when you're looking at Real Point, if there are any questions, get those to Kathy sooner, and then we will revisit our 27 budget in May. The May meeting. With that, we can move to the treasurer's report, Kathy.
I move the board approve the February 2026 operating bills totaling $533,051.38.
Support.
Discussion, questions? I did have a question on. Sorry, I may not be. The OCWRC.
That's the water bill. That's easy, because I gotta pay one too.
Any other questions?
Yes.
I have a question on the Realcom part for NCD architects.
Yeah.
In the last three reports, 3 months, we've paid them a substantial amount. And I just wondered if we could just have a summary of to date, how much we paid under their contract, just to get an idea.
It's funny you say that, because I just printed all that out and I was gonna bring it to the meeting and did not. Fortunately, we do have, sorry, but I can do that, yes.
That'd be good, just to our private mail.
Yeah,
You'll be emailing them, that's what I do.
I can.
Thank you.
Is that monthly MCD, or is that a monthly expense, or no? No,
It's-
it's just
it's
have to
as
be the
they-
last 3 months.
As they give the percentage down and they those one, you know, they're not finished with, like, they're 90% finished with. What?
Details.
Yeah.
Plans are 90%
That's
complete.
right, so every time you get a certain percentage done, then we,
A little summary would be good.
oh yeah, I can do that. I move to receive and file the February.
Sorry, did we want to vote on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
If there aren't any questions, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're approving the February operating bills.
I move to receive and file the February 2026 financial report.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Right. All those in favor say aye.
I
Any opposed? With that, the financial reports.
Okay, Michigan class, as of February 28th, our Michigan class balance was $14,533,541.63. Our February earned interest was $41,503.22. And our year-to-date interest was $87,627.41. On February 1st, our daily interest rate was 3.8216%, and on February 28th, it was 3.7774. I think on February 20th, we received our yearly LCSA check for $332,512.45. And LCSA stands for Local Community Stabilization Authority, provides reimbursement to municipalities for operating and debt millage based on personal property taxable value declines. Well, I don't know about you, but my personal property declined, so. But anyways, they think it did so. So that's all.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yes.
Next on our agenda, we have our friends. Stacy with your snazzy new nameplate there.
So snazzy.
Why did it take us so long to get that?
But you know what? These things
Better
happen.
late than never.
That's right.
I'll
Thank
turn
you.
it over to you.
Appreciate it. Last night we met and we have some really good news. We have a new board member. For those who know her, I'm not sure if you do. Her name is Dana Abro, and she's a resident of Washington DC. Actually, she is from Farmington Hills. She grew up here. She went to North Farmington High School. She was a page at the library, and that's how I met her. And she attended one of my programs when I was the YA librarian here. And we've been friends ever since. So we're really glad to have her. Her mom Shirley volunteers with the book sales. And I love her so much because Shirley will say, it's going to cost this much and hold her hand out for the money until money is put into her hand. A lot of people don't like to take money. They think there's some kind of weirdness with it. Shirley has no problem with it. And then she upsells stuff. So it's been really great. So very excited to have Dana come. She is currently, she works for the Peace Corps. She is a security officer for it's Europe and Near East Asia, but she generally centers in the Balkan areas to a degree. And she's worked for the Peace Corps, for the government rather, for almost 20 years now. So she's a great help and really knows a lot of people in the area still, has a big family presence here. So we're very happy to have her. Ernie attended last night and that was very nice, and he had a good time talking to everybody about things and made a lot of more work for me. I'll tell you about it. Several things happening. If we can get it off the ground, we're probably going to have a small library day of giving that the marketing department will put together for us as sort of an online presence and maybe some very low-key in-house kind of information. We're going to have a lapsed membership letter for friends go out. It's been fairly successful in terms of the commitment and the money and cost for that versus the return on investment. And as Ernie has said, and as we in the board like to talk about, we would like to grow the number of members as well as the amount. We continue to receive most of our revenue through membership. Last year, about 61,000. It goes up and down throughout the years, and hopefully we will continue and grow that a little bit. Upcoming, we have several programs. We have the book sale, which will take place April 16th through the 18th. We are doing this modified sale where we have an evening sale in order to reach people who are who work during the day rather than have it on a Friday. And then we'll have all day Friday and then part of the day on Saturday in the New Friends Bookshop, which is going great guns. We've been selling probably, I don't know, 40% over what we had been in the past. So I anticipate that along with that, as well as some eBay sales, that we will try and hit about 40,000 in sales through book sales. Yeah, it would be really great. I have had every time I go on vacation someplace, I visit the library because of course I would do that, right? And I say, oh, I'm with the friends, and then I get the friends tour of places, right? And so because I've been in contact with a lot of people who are doing things across the country in a way that's going to benefit them, however, we've had a really great opportunity to find out what kind of ideas work. And I do think that whether the board goes for a bond issue or whether they create a foundation, there's going to be so much information available that you'll just have a plethora of things to choose from when you make a decision about what you want to do with that. So I'm very hopeful that will be beneficial in whatever way, shape, or form you choose. So the book sale is coming up. The Odds and Ends art auction is the next weekend on Friday the 24th. If you have any art, if you want to be like Ernie and have crazy art that sells for the most money and is the ugliest thing that I think I've seen, like, please bring it in. Okay. And it is a fun time and we're looking forward to it. And thanks to Sharon's suggestion, we've got a nice display in the front at the desk at 12 Mile. So that would be great. We are going to have our newly renamed gala, which is now the Members Appreciation Celebration. Because the gala is a term that is used in fundraising. It really doesn't mean what we do. So that is going to be that's going to be the first Friday in June, right? I want to publicly thank Ms. Johnson for her work in gathering volunteers. We're currently working with the Northville
It's like the whole Northville school. I thought it was NHS, but most of the kids come from a specific volunteer organization. So there are all these wonderful young women who just want to volunteer. They're not being arm twisted into it. It's been really good, all A students. I've been really happy.
They have been hilarious and fun and have done a lot of good work, and they keep pricing the books that are for sale from book sale at higher than I think they should go, so great, right? So based on, you know, what the Youth Employment Services Act specified, I think this is a good workaround for the library that keeps people happy in the community. We have emails every week asking for volunteers. We're going to try and cram on them somehow, some way, so that they get some time. And we have several new adult volunteers who are marvelous and love them a lot. Lori Salinger, who's a retiree from the library, is volunteering. Yes, she is. She comes in every Monday, and we have a great time with that. So if you have anybody who is interested, then let me know. But I think book sale is probably the way to go, just because everything else is run by the library. Sorry. So I will not be here in April. I have an outstanding student presentation at my institution, because I have an outstanding student that I'm going to present for. So I'll see you all in May. Any questions about it? Oh, and Ernie, of course, was like, when Sasha had, I don't want to steal your thunder, but when she talked about the new thing that is happening to get rid of some of the excess around here, he's like, oh, well, we could sell like old tech and make a lot of money, because people love old tech. So if you have old tech lying around, whether it's a computer or a gaming system, or I don't know, pick it, let me know. If you don't want to bring it in, you can just send me pictures and you can put it up for sale on eBay, because we've been selling, I think in February, March, we sold between $50 and $100 each week. It's just, I mean, for a low effort thing, it's not too shabby. And it's like sold book for $50, like an hour after. Put it up on eBay. That's so satisfying. Incredible. It is just incredible what people donate to us. And I am incredibly thankful for it. And we've gotten great feedback on eBay. 5-star rating. So yeah, I know. It's because I have them so carefully. It's be a librarian. So people who are crazy about books. Any questions about anything?
Thanks, Stacy. Thank you. That's Sasha, your director for Boston.
Yes. So as my thunder, Stacy was alluding to.
Right?
We have started selling goods on govdeals.com. It is a website that many universities, cities, municipalities, state agencies sell their no longer needed items. You can get anything from a tractor to a car to a pallet full of laptops, like tons of different things that, you know, colleges that redo their dorms, they sell the dorm furniture on there. So I'm really looking for a card catalog, but I haven't found one yet. So they're very hard to find. But we have sold 3 things, and we made about what, $50, Crystal? $60. We sold a typewriter, 3 receipt books, and a box of staples for a stapler we don't have anymore. Many staples for many staplers that we don't have anymore. Literally, it was just a box full of staple boxes. So we started, I had used it in several previous organizations, so I got it hooked up. Crystal is our point of contact. Actually, I think Pat's getting ready to send you some pictures. I said, if you get the pictures and all of the information from the different units, send it to Crystal, she gets it posted, arranges for them to pick it up. Sold a typewriter, the guy actually sent us the box to ship it to him in. We typically don't ship unless we have to agree to allow that, which we're like, yes, he's gonna pay for it. So it's very exciting to try and recoup money back from items that we just no longer need.
So I listed that typewriter for $5 and he paid $50 plus the shipping.
Yep. It's kind of like an auction site like eBay. You can, there's like a buy it now price and all of that. So it's very exciting. So we're going to start, like my idea is before renovations start, the furniture that's in the quiet study room now, will start, if the good stuff, we will start selling it on this website, because I've had in the past, in previous jobs, churches had come and bought a bunch of chairs because they needed them for setting up a new church, and they, as long as they were sturdy chairs, they didn't care what they looked like, you know? So things like that, so you never know who's gonna come by. It's exciting. I love to recoup money, it's like a deal,
Let's say it's recycled.
it is, I really don't wanna throw all these things, like literally, it was initially like, we could just throw all these staples away, and I'm like, there are boxes of good staples, and I'm like, somebody would buy that, right? And they only paid $5 for that, yeah,
Right.
like,
Right. University of Michigan wins their own.
do they?
They sell so much.
Yeah, yeah, it's good to know.
And that's, there's a.
It's just so much stuff.
Uh-huh.
But it's nice for smaller entities like us. They have a shared site like.
Oh, yeah, like, I know in Virginia, the universities use it, they don't do their own, they do it in some states.
You
So,
have their
oh, yeah, you have a special.
own. So special.
The Public Library Conference, Public Library Association Conference is coming up. I'm attending as well as Crystal Sexton, one of our children's managers. It's at the end of March, early April. I'm pretty excited. It's in Minneapolis. But we're looking at, you know, like some new self-checkouts in the next year. And so it'll be a great time to meet with some vendors to kind of see what's out there, what's new. We have our seems to almost be our annual Small Business Lunch and Learn series that Sherry's put together. It starts, it started this last Monday, and it runs for 6 weeks with lots of guest speakers. I think this is the second or third year they've done it. I know it's the second, maybe third, and it's been very successful. So that has just started. We talked about the budget already. Our recycling dumpster, I decided, with some help from staff, that we want to get a full recycle dumpster, and the update is it was delivered yesterday. It is bright neon green. It was so funny. Ernie parked right next to it and says, "Oh, I didn't even notice." I mean, it's bright neon green. It's parked where the other ones were, but they're actually on the concrete instead of the grass, because I wanted people not to park in front of them. So when they come to empty them, they can just empty them. So we still have one paper dumpster for the few dollars the friends get every year for that. So that's strictly paper. And the other one is a full recycled dumpster. So our staff aren't taking things home, trying to fit it in their own dumpsters. So we're very excited. It took a little while. Thank you to Crystal for hounding them after I hounded her. And we got our new recycle dumpster. I mean, it's neon green, can't miss it. And it looks very nice. Doesn't look bad.
Can I ask a question? So
Yes.
throughout the buildings then, will we have receptacles for recycle?
We are going to work on what that will look like.
Okay.
We already have some, so we will work on what that will strategically look like. We took a spot just to get that dumpster. So now that it's actually in the parking lot, we will look at, you know, where we can do it strategically. I don't want to overwhelm it, because then it's like, we don't have people to empty each one, but maybe some big ones centrally located. I had a construction meeting with McCarthy and Smith, our construction managers and the architects, to review the 90% completed plans. Aaron Phillips is the project director with McCarthy and Smith, and he was there to review the plans with us. He is the project director. There will be a project manager that will work with us.
Is that the same as the construction manager?
The construction manager is the company. It's the construction management company. And then the project director is Aaron, who we're working with initially. He helps with the budget, the scheduling, get us reviewing estimates, that kind of thing. Then there's going to be a project manager who will manage it once he's done. Then we will have a site superintendent who will actually be on site here, and an assistant one. Between the both locations, there'll be a site superintendent and an assistant site superintendent. Because the person can't be in both places at once, and our jobs are right simultaneously. I do want to encourage anybody who wants to review the 90% plans, just to give me a call or text. I'm happy to review them with you. I think it's hard to do at a board meeting, but I'm happy to review what is there. Take some time and discuss as what I'm aware of and know in it. So I'm happy to review that. You just shoot me an email or Crystal, we can arrange it. I would say like at least an hour, because there are two sets of plans at 90%. For that, so I'm happy to do that. The Seed Library is kicking off this year, this Saturday, March 14th, along with a program Learn to Compost at Home with a master gardener and compost educator. So I think the staff are very excited. They were filling the seed packets yesterday, get them all ready for the Seed Library. I was gonna mention a little bit about the construction, but I didn't know how much, Sharon, you were gonna mention about the construction timeline.
It's not on my agenda.
Okay, so after meeting with Aaron and the architects, Aaron strongly recommended that we do not actually have construction, which is shoveled dirt, start until September. Now, that doesn't mean nothing will be happening, but basically, once we get 100% completion plans, which is what we need to actually go out to bid for subcontractors to do the work, it would take, let's say you post it for about 3 weeks, you review the bids for a few weeks, then you have to, agree to contracts, which could take anywhere to 2 months, basically, trying to get subcontractors in. And that takes us into like June, July. He really recommends us just waiting till September because June, July, and August, all the schools just about are being worked on. A lot of plans are already in place for a lot of subcontractors. And we will be getting who's available and, who could get a job. And he would rather us start fresh in the fall with September, giving them time to work into their plan instead of them trying to fit us in. We're the main thing. So he recommended starting actual shovel to ground, is what I say, in September, and then it would run 9 to 10 months after that. So I know it's a little disappointing for some, and I haven't talked to a lot of staff just yet about it, but there's work going to be done. It's just the behind the scenes, the permitting, the subcontract agreements, purchasing, having all of it procured and shipped and all of that. That would take part of the summer anyway. So that was his recommendation. I strongly support the recommendation based on everything I've heard. And I know the schools, he says every school in this area gets something done in the summer. It's their prime time. And a lot of retail actually too, it's their summer time. So there's a lot of people just unavailable. They don't want us just to get, who could do it.
Quick question. If the plans are at 90%, what are we waiting on to get, like, well, I didn't even realize that it aren't 100% already. So if they're at 90%, what are we waiting on? Yeah.
He just brought them to us 2 weeks last week. And it is more, I don't. So basically he took our feedback and he's the architect, and he's supposed to fix what was some errors from our previous discussion that weren't fixed in the 90% plans, and answer some questions that we had. And I'm hoping any day now.
So there's a question about work that can occur over the winter time now in September. How does that impact the length of time? Does that lengthen it? Same, we just kind of shift what we can do during the winter time when the ground frozen.
I think Aaron, from what Aaron said, he felt that September, October, November was plenty of time to do like the outside work. And for the most part, that would be the best time. And then you just move inside for the inside work. Was his thought process, because we're running simultaneously, wouldn't have to like wait for the parking lot to get done before they could move over here and start the outside. They would run simultaneously. He felt September, October, November, and maybe even early December, because the ground really does freeze solid for a while, that would be plenty of time. That's what, because we asked that, because we were like, but he said he felt that was plenty of time.
Sandra, we, have a signed contract for our contract.
You don't get a signed contract until we get the final plans, because they don't know, they can't estimate it until they have the final plans to estimate out of.
So McCarthy is basically working by the hour, every hour.
No, it's a pre-construction fee that was in their original proposal. It works into that. So that's what they're doing.
So they're working without a contract.
Right.
Well, I was just thinking the presentation last night, Plant Moran's real point. People, if we really want to consider doing something with them, they would prefer to be in on the beginning of the construction contract. They want to be in on those kind of choices.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a need to talk about them anymore.
But they were gonna be in phase 2, not phase 1. They would start, the report would start with phase 2.
It was start with phase 2.
Right, phase 1 is pretty much good to go.
Well, I don't know, maybe that really doesn't make sense, so maybe they would say if we were at phase 1 at a certain point, we could have prevented some of these. Prevention is one of the big things, we better prices, better, I just toss that out.
That may be a good question for Kathy when you meet with, Point to ask them if there's any, I mean.
Is that, they don't seem to be
significant
aware that we already have an architect signed.
Oh, no, they know. Yeah, they were at the meeting, I mean, they know. I think it was just more of a presentation. They're fully aware we're already into phase 1 and trying to get it started, so.
And I don't think it's inappropriate to mention that the cost of the project estimate has really changed dramatically to the board. I'm not very familiar with that discussion, but I know we had it briefly, and I think that the board members should look at.
Yeah, I'd like to see more details on the cost.
Is that gonna be part of the facilities committee, except for the updated?
It's not, it wasn't,
Okay.
it actually, it's Sasha's report.
Right, we don't have a full update on the cost because they have to go back and re-evaluate it, re-estimate it. The original cost for the renovation was budgeted, well, I don't know about the original budget, I wasn't part of that, was before, before I got here. Yes. So when we went out for construction management companies, they bid it based on plans that were only 10% done. So you try and budget for a full thing, a full plan, but they only really had the 10% in hand to do their estimate. And now that they're at 90%, they have to go back and re-estimate to see, what the cost is actually going to be now that more work has been put into the plans.
So the architecture firm needs to go.
The McCarthy and Smith is taking what the architect firm has given them and re-estimating the project, but it is about 2.5 million or 3 million more, I think, than we had originally thought. But again, that was based on numbers, not with an actual construction company helping to give us the numbers. It was more of an estimate from the architect, from what I understand. I wasn't here for that part.
I think that's where a good example of the real point people, if they're at the beginning, would have made a difference. They would have said, that price is coming in, but they're gonna base it on the 90%, that would have been, professional would have caught that.
Well, I will say, I'll add also that. It's the facilities committee and our directors and our people who are not, this is not what we do for our daily job. And so part of the reason costs have gone up is because we got an initial estimate 10 months ago. And costs in the world have gone up. So, we're not moving at the pace that we thought we would move at, and it's not all our fault at all. Yeah, I think some professionals representing us might be an idea where they say they can make themselves almost cost neutral. We are seeing ways where they could have helped us. Yeah.
Ideally, we would not have gone out for construction manager until we had more like 90% plans done. It's taken a while to get the plans done.
Yeah.
Longer than I would have expected.
I
But-
think if we continue on with them in the next phase, they need to move it a little faster. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
Because we did go out for a construction manager when we did, well, yeah, not being aware of exactly where the plans were, but we thought if we waited any longer on a construction manager, we're pushing everything back. Yep, so.
Well, without being too divisive, I will say we're living in unprecedented times.
Well, yeah,
With little bit of cost. And that while one might have been able to project some amount of modest cost increase due to the raw supply across the globe. Clearly now in 2025 and 2026, we are in a totally different ballgame.
right, and this is the thing, I mean, 2 weeks ago, the discussion was different, you know, before the Strait of Hormuz was shut off. But to think of what our phase 2 through 7 was going to cost, and to think about what it could cost now, yeah, we can't,
We will have to reevaluate.
that's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
I do think if MCD architects went out with the bid with a 10% plan, I would have appreciated a heads up that, because we may not be experts, but they do this all the time. And I would have just appreciated a little asterisk of, this is based on 10% plan, costs may double, which is what has happened in like, and just a heads up, and nothing to say of, you know, the actions that were taken or the timeline, there's, say.
I think it's another way of restating though that, we don't know what we don't know. Right. We didn't know to ask. Like even with the parking lot, I kept asking about how's water gonna be managed? And I just gave up. I never got it.
Well, I think that's what I liked about Real Point is they, were going to through this, you know, and overlook what we're getting charged for this and this and this, and, you know.
We don't know what to ask. You're right.
Exactly.
I don't know what I don't know
Yeah.
about construction. I mean, I know so little about stormwater. Even that I couldn't seem to get an answer to, so. Okay, good, but yeah, and it's, my point's not stormwater management or the parking lot, my point is. It really does reinforce that, you know, our role is governance and we're not construction managers, so we don't come with that skill set to this table.
Well, I think one of the suggestions that they said was to make things not as long, you know, maybe put some things together, phases. And I think the way the prices are, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Which means we're gonna have to go off the bond. That's pretty big.
And that was the main point of Carrie asking me if we wanted to Plant Moran, which is how all that started. Not Plant Moran, Real Point.
Yeah.
It's only 50% owned by Plant Moran, it's a different arm. But she had come to me and said, hey, instead of going out through these 2 through 7 and 10-year phases, I think you should make I think you should make Real Point. I said, sure, let's try it. So I'm thankful for Carrie to think of that. For the future phases, because it's gonna cost so much money if we keep sending it out into this big 10-year plan, it's gonna cost double what it needs to cost. So I'm very thankful for her to bringing that up to us. I will say that I'm very comfortable doing phase 1 if we don't get Real Point initially in phase 1, because we're at the point now, it's just give me the plans and we're getting ready to start. The 2 through 7, we would need help. I'm comfortable in a lot of construction stuff, but I'm not that comfortable with 2 through 7 or 2 through 8 or whatever it is. And part of it is, I think for me, is coming in kind of in the middle of phase 1 already coming out or kind of out. Because again, I expected the 100% completion plans a little ago, but I again wasn't part of like the contract and like what the expectation was going forward, but I could go for it, great. I support that.
Maybe we should ask the Real Point people, you said for $25,000, we'll do a little quick summary for you.
Well, and when we had the meeting and the issue of public disclosure, you know, where I am, and I think you are, Sasha, we want to support you. We want to ensure that you have the tools, advice, and resources to do your very best, which is to be a library director, not necessarily construction manager. I hear you and I take it at your word that you can do those things. My disposition is that whatever we can do as a board to support you, we should give that serious consideration.
I agree. I don't want to stray too far from the director's report.
That's all I have.
Ernie will get on my case.
Yeah,
about
that's all I had to the director's report.
Thanks. and I hear there's a lot of conversation to be had about Real Point and just all of the capital projects that we have. But I want to keep us moving along here to our subcommittee updates. I'm happy to share on behalf of the personnel committee that we met this week. We are continuing, you all heard, I wasn't here, but I know Renee gave you all an update that the working conditions and benefits committee from the libraries suggested that, or for us to visit this point of tuition reimbursement. And so we've continued our discussions on that. Slowly building a policy. We have quite a long kind of runway to get there because we have the rest of the calendar year really in our heads as a timeline, because it would go into the following budget. And so we are talking about ways of going back to the committee, letting them know, getting some feedback on some points that we've discussed, and just really being thoughtful and intentional about building that policy. Sasha gathered some area libraries policies that exist already, so we're able to borrow from some of those best practices that are out there to create our kind of own unique one that feels right. So that is happening. Another update I have is that Sasha and I continue to do these kind of regular check-ins just for her onboarding process. And on Tuesday, so just a couple of days ago, we conducted her 3-month check-in, which for some it feels like 3 months has flown by, and other times it feels like, oh, it's only been 3 months, since it feels like Sasha's been here quite a lot longer. And so there are some really, I think, cool things Sasha's done, really hitting the ground running, coming into what we've all described as a really well-functioning, library and a team that we have. And so she's found some cost savings. She talked about one already, not what was the deals website, but some other payments that were just out there that she was able to rein in. Really, I think what I've gathered from our conversations is that Sasha is working with the staff to help, coach them and implement changes that they find are beneficial. And so there's, I think, for 3 months, it's a considerable, I guess Sasha to kind of list out all the things that she's done, and it's pretty impressive for the first 3 months that it's happening, that all that has happened, but I know there's sites for much more, just improvements and maintaining the good work that we already do. So just want to give kudos to Sasha.
Thank you.
There. Well, with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy for facility.
No, that'd be Sharon.
Oh, sorry. Sharon, for facilities update.
Let's see, we'll start with, fortunately for me, that the minister done really nicely by Jill. That we talked a little about the donor pavers, what's gonna happen to the pavers, the donor wall. And those are very interesting issues. I've learned that pavers aren't really a very good idea to start with because they get worn and you have to have them re-engraved and it's very expensive. So they're a little more difficult of an item, because they require maintenance if you keep them long term. So there's not one really good answer for those at the moment. The donor wall, naming rights for the wall, like to perhaps put it on the outside so that people can see the donor wall and where it's going to be. Where the current plan is to put it on maybe on the outdoor study space. So those two, the bricks are a little bit of a problem because they're you've got to keep them up. You can't, some of the donors that aren't doing anymore, so you can't say, oh, we'll just discard some of these. So there's something, we won't offer that again. Bricks aren't a good idea. The donor wall is very, very unique, very special. But those two items we're talking about quite a bit. Speed bumps are not currently in the parking lot plan, but that was talked about as, can you get some non-permanent ones or something temporary? There are people that do speed around. I don't know if they're using the other light because you turn left or whatever, but that issue hasn't been in plan yet, but it's being considered. The next thing, the whole lockers, I saw on the sheets there that the use was way down in the colder months. And I can tell you personally, talking to some people and myself, is that it's sometimes the keys don't want to work. Sometimes it doesn't want to read your card because it's got to be exactly right. And I think it's a little discouraging in the winter that you have to get out your card and remember your number instead of being able to use the font. So I guess they know it's a problem, and I guess Megan's assigned to, see how much of a problem it is and can it be fixed a little bit, but it's particularly sensitive in the cold weather. Let's see, I'll get some new record. Those are from you. And they were about the financial advisors and Bank Marine. Let's see. And then, and very nicely, Sasha just went through the timeline about waiting till September. And yes, I did have that here in my house. And the other item that we talked about was the EV charges are not part of the plan, but they are gonna put the lines underground that if we ever want to, do that, you can. They looked at the cost of how our plan is changing so much. I think that EV charges can go towards the bottom of the pile because it's really getting very, out of control about the. And then we don't want to throw away too much of our furniture because we might not have any furniture. Don't give up the chairs quite yet.
Oh, no.
We were gonna wait for Ernie for an update on the road to 12 Mile. It's the library, but we're kind of holding off on that because he didn't send us a. And the dumpsters already been mentioned, and the city had to remove 2 trees for utility problems over by the dumpy driveway, I believe. Any other items or for the next meeting, which is April 2nd, just send it to me and we'll add it to the agenda.
Thank you, Sharon. Well, Kathy, you sit on all these committees, so you could give an update on all of them. I'll go to for finance.
So, on February 19th, Carrie Shea, and Andy Fountain, who we met Andy tonight, came to our meeting and presented the Plant Moran Real Point Owners Representative Services and Capabilities, which was very similar to the one that Todd and Andy showed you. And I was impressed, and that's why I wanted them to come in and show you what they do. Then we had Brody Helene and Kristen Griffiths from PFM Financial Advisors and a lawyer from our law firm, Foster Swift. They did an informative presentation on capital project bonding, bond financing 101. They've worked with other libraries for bond funding, and something we might want to keep in mind when the time comes to do that, which probably will be sooner than later. That's all I have to say. Well, we will have a meeting on the 16th. Yes, that's why I want your any questions or comments about that presentation by the 15th, because the finance committee is going to talk about that. That's one of the things we're talking about. And I've invited Sharon and Jim to that. They're on the facilities committee, but this has to do with that. So, that's all.
Thank you, Kathy. I don't believe we have any unfinished business. Or any new business. We had some good presentations today. That takes us to correspondence.
Unreceived.
Then we'll come back around to public. We have some public. Yes.
I would like to make a comment. Having been an employee when the 12 Mile Library was remodeled, it was an all-encompassing project for the library director, and the library board at the time was also always at the library. There was a lot that went wrong. Before that was poured an inch too high, and they had to completely regrade it to just various things about like details with carpets and stuff. And I know it's expensive, and I know you want to keep the cost down, but I do think that your director might go out of her mind if she had to do the containment for this, because there are just so many moving parts So I appreciate being here and I appreciate being able to attend the meetings. And I would really advocate for help in this department because they are the experts at this, whomever you decide to go with. Whereas the library is an expert at even the library. And you don't wanna cross the streams, people. Bad things happen.
And I'll take Seema's public comment because I was also here. And we were not as busy a library at that time as we are now. And so there's many more moving parts within the library system, so. I mean, it's gonna cost, but I think the cost will pay for itself in sanity alone.
Staff retention.
That's my 2 cents, and they really sound like they're working on our behalf for us, and it is, especially of course would be involved and others would be involved, but that wouldn't take up a whole time. And it would take up her whole time if I think it would take up her whole time, and that's not so great. When, the plan is to stay open as much as we can, maybe not departments or whatever. But the construction alone is gonna be, as much as I'm super excited, not about the delay. There's stress to that, and so. I'm just hanging on to you in the comments.
I am so glad. I appreciate the historical context for that. That's helpful to hear.
Sorry, I did have, similar, if we are gonna hire Plant Moran, just, I would love you guys to know what they can do on like upfront addressing like warranty issues, and then on the back end, the roof leaks. We saw doors on this building that don't work, that just never got addressed when we were put in, only 3 or 4 years ago. That, will they help us get someone to commit that once this work is done, the children's library won't look at or won't flood anymore. So if we do all this work and 2 years later we have a flood and we can't break any legs or whatever we need to do to get that fixed, I'm sure it won't be an easy fix if it's successful.
I see Kathy nodding, so guessing that's gonna make it to the 316 meeting. I don't think we have any other public left to make a comment, so we can move to trustee comment.
I didn't know the roof was leaking, so what happened and what's going on?
Yes. I can tell you some of it. We have had some leaking in the young adult area and circulation and. No, it was at FH.
Oh,
Okay. FA is scheduled to get new. I wanna say shingles. Peter has arranged for that. I just paid that, I believe, so they're coming out, or I approved the quote, they're gonna come out and handle the shingles here. At FH, we had roofing company come out on Friday and did some work, and they're supposed to be coming back, so I just asked them about this on Monday, funny enough. So they did some work on Friday, they have to come back and do more work, and we have to get into their schedule. But there is still the issue in the YA where the seam is, because where you seam the roofs, and it wasn't part that was replaced. Yeah, it's not the replaced part in that area. I don't know if the new leak, that I'll talk to Elizabeth before you leave, where that was, because I didn't hear about another leak. But I have heard about the one, there's one in circulation over the weekend, and then the young adult one. So the roofers were out on Friday and they're supposed to be coming back. I didn't get an update of what day they're coming back, but they are coming back.
One of the things I did hear in the public comment at the top is that it's important that staff are informed of what's going on so they can help each other know, and certainly the patrons know.
It was on the Teams page. They were spread updates. I think we're gonna remind everyone to read the updates. Because there they are.
would we be able to get an update in next month's director's report about making sure that case of that is water sinking high? And I say that as my upstairs bathroom was ripped out because I've had it before.
The one's right from the top down.
I would like to make a comment in light of what happened earlier today, you know, in schools. I'm with some friends, how many lockdown drills have I participated in? So I happened to be in Bloomfield today in the office, and kind of down the street from Temple Israel. So I would just ask everybody to keep our good friends and the greater West Bloomfield area, and particularly up on the Temple Israel, like here at Foster Prayers. So those. Thank you.
I have a. I never had to park on the street. But I had to park on the street. I couldn't find anything in the parking lot, so I parked on the street. I don't know what street it was. That's State. State.
Liberty, or were you in the front of the building or
No.
the side?
State.
Then it's State
Street. Okay, so I'm looking where I think the amphitheater is going to go. And I'm thinking, if you're gonna have bands and music and that stuff, how is that gonna affect the inside of the building? Because I believe that's the pictured area, isn't it? And people read there and whatnot, sit in front of the fireplace and.
Oh, that corner right there
Yeah. It's right
is the lounge.
Sorry. Okay, the lounge.
And then I don't know what's about the lounge, but I don't know that it'll disturb any.
Oh, it's on Mammoth.
This is the corner.
Okay, why did I think it was?
Yeah, that's the amphitheater, that's the parking lot.
Right, okay, so what's above that?
The
Y The Y apron? So is that gonna? No, okay.
I don't think it will, but that's why it's going down, you know, for it'll affect the lounge. A little bit, our staff lounge, but, and I also, think that as it goes up and out. But I also think. I think we can advertise it. Kind of no different than any other event, we'll let people know that it's happening.
Well, I just was worried about the people inside wanting a fight.
I think the thought process for that is it's not gonna be like a band, it might be like an acoustic guitar. You know, it's not gonna be anything like.
Really
Like a
We're not
concert.
gonna have in this theory.
What? Metallica's not gonna be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking more poetry, kind of more
On weekends, maybe like that kind of thing, but not.
more artsy-ish.
Okay.
We're gonna have a screen for movies and things like that.
Yes,
That'll be in the evening usually, and
yeah, I don't intend to have, you know, I don't think it's gonna be affects the inside.
Okay. It was just a thought.
Any other comments from our trustees?
Did you? I'm just asking, so I apologize for being late, I was at 12 and waiting for you guys.
We emailed you.
Did you? So, and then I only had Ernie's number, so I texted him. So he knows I'm not here, but, did you give, or did you want us to have the cell number? Cause I don't know if you said once you were gonna send that out, I don't know if you.
oh yeah, I did, but I would. My cell number.
Oh, no.
Because I would have texted you. Yeah,
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it out to you guys.
Okay.
I thought I did.
Definitely. You know what, you could make it on one of these.
Yeah.
You were gonna make us a new one.
We have a new one. That's new. We have a new one.
Yeah, and then she's on the new one,
Yeah.
right?
No, oh, I didn't get the new one.
Oh,
When was it updated?
When did we get
I
that?
don't have a new one.
Crystal hasn't done, she will email them out.
Thanks, Crystal. And does that have what everybody's subcommittees are on?
Maybe. Let me see the back there.
Well, I think Crystal, in the past,
But,
you
like,
shared it so we can review.
Right on the top.
Yeah, I have it on there, right?
You're on the top.
Yeah.
I just want to mention one more thing.
Oh,
is-
yeah, this is real, oh, that has to be.
is we have a library email and we have personal emails. And I know, at our house, my husband, somebody got a hold of some of his emails, they sent out little invites for no party.
Yeah.
And I know we kind of use both sometimes, but really for, anything specific to the library, we really should use the library email. Because there are STEM, people come along and you use your home email for all kinds of stuff. But the library, especially when it provides finances or anything confidential. And I know, Krista, you send the minutes out and both, I think. But maybe we should just consider only sending it, on the library email.
I'd also caution for FOIA reasons as well.
Cause that's a lot more private.
Thank you for that reminder,
Yeah.
Sharon. I was gonna say, Crystal, I think in the past for our contact list, you've shared it with us so we can review, give you any changes. So if you could do that, then we can finalize the updated version with Sasha and her. Okay, out to you.
I don't think the updated version does have her cell phone.
Oh, great. Okay. Any other comments? A lot today. Well, I think that brings us to adjourn. Great. Thank you all.
Yeah, I was kind of listening to art, but I didn't really go to the food, what did they hear that sure?
What?
Oh, all right.